just one day, the city of Los Angeles will be another $340,000 in the hole. This on top of an already staggering budget shortfall. Feel like you've heard all this before? Well, this time it's different. Is this LA's moment of truth? Correspondent Judy Muller reports.
Welcome to what could be the LA of the future, the very near future.
What they'll see in their neighborhoods, parks will be closed, pools will be closed in the summer, summer youth programs will be eliminated, in the libraries you'll see a reduction of days. Things like that will be tremendously curtailed later in this year.
The quality of life in the city would certainly be diminished. Things we take for granted, things we depend upon. Have a tree on your block that needs to be trimmed? Don't count on these guys. Are potholes taking a toll on your car? Get used to it. And don't assume the city will be there to pick up all your trash every week. Quality of life, of course, includes public safety. And even though city officials say they'll protect public safety officers, cops, and firefighters, it's not that simple.
Even though they're shielding the cops, all the support staff are in danger.
David Zanizer is a City Hall reporter for the Los Angeles Times.
They're civilian workers who will be missed if they're not at the police department. Those could be criminologists or potentially fingerprint analysts.
You know, it's going to be bare bones minimum, which means the things that people have taken for granted for all these years will no longer exist.
The city attorney's office may lose nearly 100 employees, including several prosecutors. That may mean fewer prosecutions of a range of crimes, from car theft to domestic violence. There will be fewer attorneys to enforce the city's ban on billboards and medical marijuana clinics. Fewer attorneys to keep tabs on the thousands of parolees currently being freed because of jail overcrowding. And the impact will hit everyone, from blue collar to white.
And you know, people who live in nice communities may not think that it's going to affect them now, but it is because it spreads.
After years of ducking and weaving around tough budget decisions, this may be LA's moment of truth.
The problems that we're going to be facing truly are monumental. I think, as Miguel indicated, I see no way out of this.
The tensions are rising and the options are diminishing.
Actually, there is only one option. To avoid insolvency, the city council must now make some draconian cuts in the budget. And draconian may be an understatement.
No one has dealt with such a critical crisis than what we're dealing with here.
Oh, it's serious. When we use the word crisis, it's true.
And it's a horror show. It's an absolute horror show.
40 mayors have governed Los Angeles over the years, but none has ever faced a fiscal crisis of this magnitude. That unwelcome task now falls to the 41st mayor, Antonio Villaraigosa.
We're living beyond our means. We have difficult choices to make. We must protect our economic future.
The immediate future is grim. With tax revenues plummeting and pension costs skyrocketing, the city is going broke to the tune of $100 million every 3 months. Last week, the mayor tried to stop the hemorrhaging.
Today, I am directing the elimination of 1,000 filled full-time position authorities.
His order came just 24 hours after the city council once again tried to put off the inevitable.
Close the roll and tabulate the vote, please.
11 ayes, 4 noes.
The council postponed a vote to trigger immediate layoffs and the elimination of several city departments.
I don't have a problem with cutting. Trust me, I've done that. But we're not ready for that yet.
Delays are getting costly in LA. Each day the city refuses to trim the fat, the deficit grows by $338,000. The city council's 30-day postponement will add $10,140,000 to the city's deficit. And that translates into even more jobs that will be lost.
Every day that we wait, it's 4 more positions that we need to identify.
Feeling the pressure, this week Mayor Villaraigosa made his first appearance at a city council meeting, urging the members to do something, and quickly.
We can't continue to say no to everything. You can't say no to layoffs, no to furloughs, no to department eliminations,
But even if the city council says yes to immediate layoffs, they won't take effect for weeks or months. And when they do, they'll only make an estimated $50 million dent in this year's $200 million shortfall.
In the meantime, the city is raiding its reserve funds to pay its bills. It's not as though the city officials couldn't see this coming. The alarm bells have been loud and persistent.
We are currently projecting about a $219 million gap.
We feel we're sort of on the verge of a financial crisis if we don't take some action very shortly.
They've had the warnings about this catastrophe over and over for the last 2 years, and they've done nothing about it.
The mayor and the city council will now have to decide which of the 34 commissions and boards and 49 departments and bureaus should eventually be cut.
If we have to choose between funding firefighters and police officers or continuing to operate golf courses and parking meters across Los Angeles, I choose public safety.
But the mayor may not be able to shield police and fire from the budget buzzsaw for long. Public safety makes up 70% of the city's budget. Balancing the books without touching the LAPD and fire may be impossible.
Well, if 70% of the money is in police and fire, that's where you have to go to address this issue.
But so far, few city leaders say they will take a chunk out of the police and fire department funds. That leaves the other 30% of the budget to take the brunt of the cuts.
Whether it's in parks, libraries, other services, streets and highways, transportation, all these things are in that 30%. And if you're taking 100% of all the actions on that 30%, that means at some point in time, the critical mass will happen and you'll totally destroy those functions of city government.
Hoping to lessen the blow to city services and staff, the mayor and the city council are looking for unusual solutions in unusual places. City parking structures are not exactly pots of gold, but the mayor hopes to lease them out for 50 years in exchange for money up front and a percentage of profits over the years.
So what we're doing is we're selling off a valuable asset that has revenue streams for a very long time just to put money back into the reserve fund that we will then use to balance next year's budget. It's a vicious circle downward. It doesn't answer the problem. It's a one-time savings and a long-term cost.
The city has already spent a small fortune on studying the parking structures.
And how much we're going to spend on this?
Well, the total now will be $630,000
for 10. $630,000 for 10? Don't you think that's a little expensive? How many firefighters left on the street, police officers, ambulances? We're talking about $500,000 to analyze 10 locations. It's absolutely mind-boggling. We would even consider $600,000 to analyze 10 locations. Unbelievable. Preposterous.
But just last week, the city council voted to spend another $500,000 for a consultant to determine just how much private companies would pay for the structures.
Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes, 1 no.
The vote happened the same week council members learned that 9 of the top 13 debtors to the city are parking operators who owe more than $100 million in back taxes.
Of the top 13, 9 are parking companies, and you want to sell them our parking spaces? That's crazy!
Despite lukewarm support from the city council, the push for privatizing parking continues.
The risk is that they're really looking for this money and they're going to be negotiating deals at a time when they are almost desperate for money, which is not exactly your best negotiating position if you're a large bureaucracy.
And even more assets may be up for grabs. For starters, the council is considering plans to privatize the zoo, the convention center, the city's golf courses, and some animal shelters.
They're going to go out and, for example, let's say sell capital assets, like the parking structures, and they're going to use the proceeds from the sale of these capital assets to pay operating expenses. Well, that's selling the family. Selling the family silverware. That's a disaster.
Los Angeles is facing a disaster, so it should come as no surprise that the city may have to do the same thing millions of families across the country are doing, selling off the family treasures in the hopes of avoiding bankruptcy. I'm Judy Muller for SoCal Connected.